the bomb went off right in front of us.
1 year after the Boston bombings,
People are screaming.
survivors share their stories.
I'm looking just across the street at a guy sitting in his chair with his legs blown off.
Plus,
We need to get him in surgery right away.
from the new movie, Heaven is for Real.
He saw things that I can't really explain.
We'll talk to director Randall Wallace on today's 700 Club.
Well, welcome to this edition of the 700 Club. Once again, the ugly specter of anti-Semitism has shown up in America after a man killed 3 people in Jewish facilities in Kansas on the eve of the Jewish Passover.
The suspect in the case is being called a longtime anti-Semite and a white supremacist. George Thomas has the story.
Authorities say the suspect is a 73-year-old man seen in this video captured by a local television crew as he was being handcuffed. His name is Glenn Miller and reportedly has a history of racist and anti-Semitic activity. He was heard shouting Heil Hitler moments after being put in the back of the police car.
The initial call came into our dispatch center at 1:03 p.m.
The chaos began Sunday afternoon in a suburb of Kansas City when Miller opened fire in the parking lot of this Jewish community center.
It was really scary. I mean, people are calling their loved ones, and I called my mom and she started crying, and then I started crying.
2 people were killed at the scene.
Several shots were fired at that location, and witnesses stated that the suspect left the location soon after.
His next target, a Jewish retirement home a couple of blocks down. Police say he was carrying a shotgun and handgun. 1 person was killed at the scene.
Today is a tragic shooting of 3 people that marks a sad day in the city of Overland Park.
Sunday's attack comes as anti-Semitic incidents have actually been on the decline here in the United States, although they've been rising in other parts of the world, especially in Europe. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, says Miller is a white supremacist and a former Grand Dragon of the KKK. He reportedly posted more than 12,000 times on the Vanguard News Network, whose slogan is "No Jews, just right." The Jewish Passover begins today, and authorities say it is too early to say whether the shootings were hate crimes.
Obviously, at 2 Jewish facilities, one might make that assumption, but we're going to have to know more about it before we'll label it.
President Obama called the shootings heartbreaking as prayer services were held in local churches to mourn the victims. George Thomas, CBN News.
Just never seems to end. In other news, deadly terrorist attack in Nigeria has killed more than 70 people. John Jessup has more on that story from Washington. Here's John.
Pat, an explosion blasted through a busy bus station on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital just before 7 in the morning local time. It came as hundreds of people were traveling to work. The blast destroyed more than 30 vehicles, and that led to secondary explosions as fuel tanks ignited and burned. There was no claim of responsibility, but bus stations have been a favorite target of Islamic terrorists in Nigeria, and they've been threatening to attack the capital in the middle of the country. The Boko Haram Islamic terrorist network has been attacking schools, villages, marketplaces, and military barracks in other parts of the country. The group wants to force an Islamic state on Nigeria. Pat, this also comes on the heels of a deadly attack yesterday. That attack claimed 60 lives.
You know, John, I wonder, and I think, ladies and gentlemen, we all need to wonder, is who are these people that want to kill little babies, want to kill innocent women and children, want to kill shoppers, people sitting in restaurants, just wanton slaughter? What is it in their religion? Don't think that they're poor, oppressed people. Many of them are from the upper classes. But I want to give you something. We'll talk more about it later on today, but I think you need to understand when this stuff's going on, and millions of people have lost their lives because of this fanaticism. We have a booklet called Islam, Religion of Peace or War. We've had about 23,000 requests for this already. It's a gorgeous publication. It's got all kinds of facts, directly quotes from the Quran, from the fundamental documents of the Islamic faith. This isn't an aberration, and these people are not twisting a great religion. They are following the precepts of the founder of that religion. But nevertheless, to kill innocent women and children, don't you get sick of it? We're going to talk later on about the wanton slaughter that took place during the Boston Marathon. Today is the day to celebrate that race. John?
Pat, America's top federal energy regulator says her agency is taking steps to protect the nation's power grid from possible terrorist attacks. Cheryl LaFleur says the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is improving the handling of national security information. The move follows a report that certain officials failed to protect the grid's vulnerabilities. They casually had allowed widespread access to a document discussing specific physical threats to the grid. Last month, the Wall Street Journal reported on a secret federal analysis that said if a coordinated terrorist attack on 9 key substations were successful, it could cause catastrophic power outages across the country. And Pacific Gas and Electric is offering a $250,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction in the attack on one of its substations in California. Last April, snipers shot at the Metcalf substation, then escaped before police arrived. The military-style attack blasted 17 giant transformers, which supply power to parts of Silicon Valley. The people responsible also cut fiber optic lines to knock out the area's phone and 911 service. Well, speaking of finances, tomorrow is the deadline for filing taxes if you didn't already know. And if you're one of the millions still scrambling to file, the IRS may not be the best place to turn for help. But as John Waggy explains, some tax experts are trying to make the process a little less painful.
Most of us are familiar with federal deductions such as moving expenses or charitable giving, including items like clothes and furniture. But the persistent filer can find some unusual ways to recoup what Uncle Sam has taken away, like deductions for shipping your pet across the country, or hot tubs for those who can get a doctor to sign off on their soaking needs, or the cost of music mouth therapy for someone who's been to the orthodontist.
A bodybuilder wanted to know if he could take posing oil as a legitimate business expense for his business, and in that set of circumstances, that was okay.
For others, relieving the tax burden is more serious. The IRS sends out more than 5 million of the dreaded 1099-C forms every year. The form is to declare the tax on forgiveness of debt. That means millions are paying taxes on income that doesn't exist. But on a recent 700 Club, Dan Pilla, author of the book How to Eliminate Taxes on Debt Forgiveness, said little-known rules allow for a way out.
The rule is if you are insolvent as of the day the debt is forgiven, then that cancellation of debt is not taxable income.
But Pilla says your creditors and the IRS won't tell you that, so you have to present your case to the government.
There's a tax form that people don't know about that you can put with your tax return. So if you get one of these 1099-Cs, as millions of people will do here, already have here for this filing season, there's a form you can put with your tax return that expresses what these exceptions are so that you don't get taxed on it.
As the tax code becomes increasingly complex and oppressive for those who pay taxes, it's more important than ever to have help in navigating the bureaucracy. John Waggy, CBN News.
Well, even though the tax code is extremely complicated, most Americans think filing taxes is easy, according to an Associated Press poll. 58% say filing returns is simple. 38% disagree. They think it's hard. And 86% of those surveyed who had already finished say they're confident they filed their taxes correctly. Also, 90% of those, 90% rather, oppose making the tax code simpler if it means paying higher taxes. And Pat, conversely, only 7% say they're willing to pay more in taxes for a simpler code.
About 50% don't do anything. 50% don't even owe any taxes. So, of course, they don't think the code is complex because they don't owe anything. So it's the people who actually earn some money and have to go through these torturous machinations to figure the alternate minimum tax, et cetera, et cetera. That's what's complex. And all the deductions and the set-offs and the set-asides, it is a procedural nightmare, regardless of what. But of course, the majority of the people who don't pay taxes, why should they care? So, you know, if it's going to change the code, you won't stoke the rich quite as much. That's not good. We want to get more money out of them if we can, so they'll pay the bills for us. That's not a good situation we're in, but that's the way it is. You know, Wendy, I trained in tax law in the law school. I mean, that was my specialty. And I used to do my own taxes, and I was proud that I could do it. I did all those various calculations. And then after a while, the IRS themselves, the people didn't like the way I was doing it. I didn't type stuff in my own handwriting. And it got so complicated. There's so many things that, you know, you turn it over to, in my case, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and just say, hey, take it. I don't, you know, I'm not going to fool with it. I don't have a clue anymore. I really don't have a clue. I used to know. I don't have a clue. So they tell me, well, write a check for so much money, or you're going to get a refund for so much money. Well, that's nice. And I don't have any idea. Because
refund is always better.
Huh?
Refund is always better than pay.
That is so brilliant. Thank you. All right, what else you got?
Coming up, cold winds have been blowing since the so-called Arab Spring, and acts of jihad on U.S. soil are increasing. See how the Arab winter has come to America next.
I was having some pains between my shoulder blades. At that point, everything changed. Diagnosis, pancreatic cancer. First, there was prayer. The second is to fight. As soon as we walked through those doors at Cancer Treatment Centers of America, all my anxiety left. The pastoral care here is based on the Bible, based on the Word of God, just as it is at our own church.
When you combine the great medicine with the spiritual resources we have, it provides the patients with something that really can make a difference.
You got a pastor right there on staff praying with patients, and whether it be scripture or whether it just be a word of encouragement to say, God's got this.
If you or someone you love is fighting complex or advanced stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com/faith. You'll learn how our treatment results compare to national averages and see a list of insurance plans with which we've worked. Advanced medicine and technology, the warm embrace of the Spirit.
I firmly believe God led me here.
Call or go to cancercenter.com. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits. Appointments available now.
Tomorrow,
your son had a near-death experience.
He saw things that I can't really explain.
before you see the movie,
Mom was in one room, you were in another room yelling at God.
Get the real story.
I knew that the first person I saw was Jesus. He was wearing white robes with a purple sash.
Colton Burpo shares what's on the other side.
Heaven is for real, and you're gonna like it.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
One year ago, Americans were shocked when Islamic terrorists launched another attack in America, setting off 2 bombs at the Boston Marathon, killing 3 and injuring more than 250 people. One author says that attack was just the latest in Islamic jihad on American soil, but it's not the last. Take a look.
When the Arab Spring revolutions began in Tunisia and Egypt in 2011, many in the West hailed the uprisings as the beginning of a new era of democracy and pluralism in the Middle East. But that didn't happen. Instead, analysts say the region is less stable, more uncertain, and more violent than before. And the new Arab Spring has ushered in a new and aggressive global resurgence of Islamic jihad. On the anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing, author and Islam expert Robert Spencer releases his newest book, Arab Winter Comes to America, The Truth About the War We're In. Spencer says the same radical Islamic groups that caused the Arab Spring in the Middle East are at work in America right now, exposing Americans to even more threats of jihad. And he warns that America is shockingly unequipped to face this threat.
Well, author and Islamic expert Robert Spencer is here with us. He's written a book called The Arab Winter Comes to America, and it's a pleasure to welcome him back on the 700 Club. Glad to see you again. Thank you.
Very good to be here. Thank you.
You've got something really shocking in this book, is that the Obama administration told the FBI and our Homeland Security people to delete 1 1,000 pages of information naming the sources of Islamic terror. Could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I used to be a trainer of FBI agents. I would train them about Islam and jihad so that they would understand the motives and goals of our enemy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't defeat an enemy you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But on October 19th, 2011,
Mm-hmm.
the 57 Muslim organizations wrote to John Brennan, who was then the Homeland Security Advisor, and now he's the head of the CIA, demanding that all information about Islam and jihad be scrubbed from counterterror training, and all counterterror trainers who spoke about Islam, like me, be fired. And what's happened in the time since then is that we got intelligence from Russia that said that Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the Boston bomber, was an Islamic jihadi. And the FBI didn't do anything.
Wait a minute. That came through to the FBI. They had clear information that this Tsarnaev was a jihadi?
Yes, they did. The Russians said he was a, quote, a follower of radical Islam who had tried to join underground groups. Now, a follower of radical Islam is only going to be trying to join jihad terror groups.
But the FBI did nothing?
They made a perfunctory investigation. They decided that he was not a terror threat, and they dropped any surveillance.
So the people died on their watch. They knew that this was going to happen. Did they know it was going to happen during the marathon? Or?
They didn't know it was going to happen during the marathon, but they had every reason to be following the Tsarnaev brothers, and they were not doing so out of this politically correct, willful ignorance that makes them refuse to deal adequately with the jihad threat.
You mentioned the number of groups. So the umbrella is called the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE.
They were involved.
What influence do they have?
They have tremendous influence. The FBI actually will no longer work with them because of their ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. But they still have tremendous influence within the Obama administration. They were one of the 57 groups that demanded that all this material that spoke realistically about jihad would be scrubbed.
Do they have people sitting in the councils of the White House and what would be not the Oval Office, but the executive office area?
They do. They have people who are in key positions in the Obama administration. There are people with Muslim Brotherhood ties, like Mohammed Ali Biari, who is on the Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council, and other people with Muslim Brotherhood ties that have great influence in the Obama administration. Arif Ali Khan, who is also in Homeland Security, and others who have been involved with these Muslim Brotherhood groups.
Why would the Obama administration put people like that on in sensitive intelligence gathering positions?
Well, you know, political correctness rules the day, and we have to. Obama keeps insisting we're not at war with Islam. He has warmly favored the so-called Arab Spring, really the Arab Winter, Islamic supremacist revolutions all around the Arab world, and he wants to show always that he has a good faith toward Islam and so on, and so he put these people in these influential positions.
What about that statement he made at the United Nations a couple of years ago about defaming the prophet? What is defamation? You have something in your book about what defamation is.
He said that the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet of Islam. And in Islamic law, slander is not lying about somebody. It's telling truths about someone that he does not want known. And what they don't want us to know right now, these Islamic groups in the United States like CARE, is the nature and magnitude of the jihad threat, which is exactly what Obama scrubbed from counterterror training.
So a slander is saying truth about somebody that he doesn't want said.
That's right.
Now, how do you get that information? What's the definition? Where'd you get it?
That's from the Reliance of the Traveler, which is a manual of Islamic law that's published by Al-Azhar University in Cairo, which is the foremost institution in the Sunni Muslim world.
Do you think Obama knew what he was saying when he said slander?
I think somebody gave him that phrase, absolutely, and that the people who gave it to him knew what they were doing, even if he didn't.
If somebody tells the truth about Muhammad, tells everything about him, his writings out of the Quran, and he wouldn't like that being published, that's a slander?
That's right. And that's why people like me are charged with slandering the Prophet and slandering Islam, when what we do is tell the truth about what Islam teaches.
Well, I understand they wouldn't even let you into Great Britain.
Yeah, that just shows the power of these Islamic supremacist groups. It was a smear campaign by leftist and Muslim groups saying this guy slanders Islam, says that Islam is violent. That's what the Home Office's letter to me actually said, that you say that Islam has a doctrine of warfare against unbelievers, which is just a fact, and so we can't let you into the country.
You said they have a doctrine of warfare It's in the Quran.
Yes, of course it is.
I mean, cold letter. What about this deal at Brandeis University when Hershey Alley was denied a degree? You want to comment on that?
It's all part of the same thing, Pat. You know, that there's a concerted effort that I detail in the book to destroy anyone who speaks honestly about the jihad threat and about what Islam teaches about violence against unbelievers. Anybody who does that is targeted, smeared, defamed, with the ultimate intention of marginalizing them completely so that everyone will be afraid to speak about the jihad threat and it can advance unimpeded.
How bad is it? You're talking about it not an Arab Spring, it's an Arab winter. How pervasive is that?
It's very pervasive. I mean, we've had several jihad plots and jihad massacres in the United States over the last few years, and they've all been covered up. I mean, most notably, the Fort Hood jihad massacre that the Obama administration called workplace violence.
Are you serious? Wait a minute. Initially, it was called workplace violence?
It still is in the official government report on it.
And he's saying, Allahu Akbar. I mean, he's shouting out Muslim slogans when he's shooting these people?
Yes, and they said it was workplace violence, and the government report on it never once mentions Islam or jihad. That's the extent of the denial, and that kind of denial only ensures that there will be more attacks like that.
What do you think is going to happen? You said the winter comes to America. There was an Arab Spring. You look across the North Africa, and especially in Egypt. What's going on now?
Well, all it was the Arab Spring was an Islamic supremacist takeover where the Muslim Brotherhood and allied organizations like it moved to put Islamic states in power in all those countries. Now, the big thing that happened that they didn't expect was that the Muslim Brotherhood regime in Egypt was so unpopular that the Egyptian people toppled it from power after a year. And so that's a sign of hope. But the Islamic groups are still advancing all around the globe, and most of all in the United States, where our authorities are asleep at the wheel.
The Brotherhood, it sounds so benign, but it's not benign at all. Talk about it.
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood is a brotherhood among Muslims, but Islam teaches, for example, in the Quran, it says, Muhammad is the apostle of Allah. Those who follow him are merciful to one another, but ruthless to the unbelievers. That's chapter 48, verse 29. And so they might feel themselves a brotherhood, but it's a brotherhood that mandates warfare against and the oppression of non-Muslims.
What's the final prognosis for this nation in the Western world?
If we don't turn this around quickly, then there is going to be civil conflict on a massive scale and the Islamization of large portions of Europe and possibly even America itself.
We've been talking about France. It looks like it's very pervasive, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's very pervasive in France. There are areas right now where you can't even go if you're a non-Muslim unless you are ready to be physically attacked. And these no-go areas are not just in France, but in Sweden, in Belgium, and in even parts of London.
What are they going to do? What can be done?
Well, what we have to do is assert our own laws. And these areas are self-governing enclaves that are essentially enforcing Islamic law in the middle of Western states. And Western authorities have to have the courage to go in there and say, there's going to be one law, not Islamic law, but one law in this land for all people. Instead, though, British authorities, even over the last few years, have been saying, well, we can have Islamic law in Britain for the Muslims, and we'll have a separate legal system for the rest of people. And that's already bearing bitter fruit.
But when you say this, you are castigated.
Yes. That's all part of the same campaign. Everyone who speaks honestly about jihad terror will be defamed, smeared, mocked, ridiculed with the intention of completely destroying and silencing us.
Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, this book's rather important. Robert Spencer, Amazon, anyway? Where do you get it?
If you go to cbn.com, all the links are there. It's at Amazon, at my website, jihadwatch.org. Right. Should be at any self-respecting bookstore as well.
Robert Spencer, ladies and gentlemen, we're just delighted that he's writing this, but what a terrible thing is being done. We cannot allow these jihadis to get the upper hand. We just can't let it happen. Wendy?
Thanks, Pat. Well, up next, we'll take you back to the scene of the Boston Marathon bombings.
You got the smell of the gunpowder, you got blood everywhere, you got people screaming hysterically, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, God, how am I going to get to the point where I can forgive?
Eyewitnesses shared their personal stories right after this.
Hi, my name is Breda. I'm just your typical 9-year-old. I love singing, dancing, reading, discovering the simple truth. My grandpa says you're never too young or old to learn the value of a dollar. He taught me the true value of this paper dollar. You see this little gold coin? It says $1 on it. But guess what? That was a long time ago. Today, this gold dollar is worth over 100 paper dollars. This paper dollar is now only worth 1 penny compared to America's former money, the gold dollar. My grandpa says the only money worth saving today is real money, gold or silver coins. He's pretty smart. How our paper dollars lost their value, he says. It's all explained in a new book, The Great Withdrawal. It's easy and fun to read. If you call the number on the screen, I will send you a copy totally free.
Fifth grade was a struggle. I mean, it was hard for him.
The teachers didn't really understand what was happening with me.
I mean, he was very stressed out.
At K-12, we think every child deserves the best chance to succeed in school. Now there's a tuition-free choice for kindergarten through 12th graders, an online public school powered by K-12. K-12 offers flexible schedules and programs customized for each student. The award-winning curriculum is taught by highly qualified teachers. Textbooks, videos, and materials are all included free. To find out more, call or click today.
That student has no way to fall through those cracks at all because the parent and the teacher are working so hard together that they're going to succeed.
Since starting online school and being at home, his whole demeanor has changed.
Don't wait. Make a choice that can change the course of your child's life. For your free information kit, call or visit k12.com today.
Hi, I'm Terry Mewson. At CBN, we're here to pray for you all year long. But each spring, the entire staff of CBN sets aside a special week of prayer to intercede for your needs. Spring is the time of new beginnings, so please send us your requests, no matter how big or small, so we can pray for you. Call us now or mail your prayer request today. It's our privilege to pray for you.
Thanks, Terry. Here's what it looks like. It's going to be, it's beautiful, little pretty violet flowers, you know, purple.
Purple flowers.
Huh?
Purple flowers.
Purple flowers. It's all there. It's coming out to you. And you put in it your prayer requests, write them down, and then send them back in to us. And then when we get praying, we will be praying for these requests and others. And God is going to, hear, and He's going to answer. He's going to bless people. So that's coming to your home in the next few days. And then after the Easter time, we've got a week of prayer where our staff's going to be praying, and we'll be having special times. Now, something else. I've showed you this book. Folks, you need to be informed. This is so easy to read, and it's so poignant because it gives the facts. It's amazing. The prophet of Islam may not like what we're saying or what's being said in this book, but it's true. And it's published by, at least it's put together by a group called Truth. And it's the truth. And it's something that we'll give you free. And if you want multiple copies, you can ask us what to do, and I think it'd be a slight charge for that. But these are free for you. Call in 1-800-759-0700, or you can log on to cbn.com. Say, I want Islam, a religion of peace or war. Have you read it?
I just got mine in the mail. I cannot wait to read it. It actually came to my... Are you going to give me an extra copy too?
Well, if you want.
Yeah, but I think you could probably read it in about an hour or less.
Or less. But to look at all those things, but it's been vetted out by Arabic-speaking Islamic scholars, and I think
we need to understand
the
this.
truth.
This is fantastic.
Go ahead.
All right. I'm worried about pronouncing this name. Saltalamakia. Did I say it right?
Yeah. Makia.
Lamakia.
Right, go ahead.
Well, earlier we talked about the bombings at the Boston Marathon last year. Reporter Tom Buring spoke with several people about exactly what went down that tragic day and about how they personally handled the aftermath. One of them was former Red Sox catcher Jarrett Saltalamacchia. Let's take a look.
When Boston's marathon began in Hopkinton, runners were on their mark, but they would soon chase a great distance that would feel as deep as it ran long.
Well, the day started with a tremendous amount of anticipation and excitement. You've been training for 6 months, 6 days a week.
Went out to the site and started running the race. It was a beautiful day. It was a gorgeous day, and everybody was in great spirits.
Down the road, Fenway Park was packed. Catcher Jared Saltalamacchia hit a home run, and his Red Sox rallied for a win.
We just finished the game, and we were in the clubhouse, got on the bus, and one of the guys just said, hey, there was a bomb at the finish line of the marathon, and then there was another one.
Rob Davis had just finished the 26-mile race. He was exhausted. He toweled off and ate, then waited to cheer on a friend near the finish line. After hearing the first blast, he was caught 20 feet from the second explosion.
The bomb went off right in front of us. People are screaming, and we've gone from a beautiful day in Boston to a war zone instantaneously. And I'm looking just across the street at a guy sitting in his chair with his legs blown off. I look down at my feet, and the bone of his leg are at my feet. At the same time, there's a girl that's on fire, and she's running towards me, and a police officer grabs her and starts patting down her hair. This girl is shell-shocked, freezing, naked on Boylston Street. I start shaking. I'm shaking again. You go back into this, and you got the smell of the gunpowder, you got blood everywhere, you got people screaming hysterically. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, God, how am I going to get to the point where I can forgive?
It's a question that still lingers, challenging many, including some of those who visit the recently restored sidewalk along the Boylston bombing sites. The famed marathon of determination and achievement quickly changed, catching all of us flat-footed. It moved to a much different race, one with hurdles of fear and forgiveness.
I can't at all forgive the two of them or anyone who else was involved. I don't think any motive or any reasoning behind any action that they had planned is ever forgivable.
These guys had deliberate intentions to maliciously hurt people. I think everybody can forgive things that happen, but something like that, I personally I don't feel there's any room for forgiveness there.
Yeah, I want to get angry. Yeah, I want to do some hurtful things, but why? My ultimate goal, my ultimate life is for him, and that's not his way. He wants me to forgive, so I'm going to forgive because I would lay my life down for him.
Sajjan Sharma was 5 miles away from the blast, at the bottom of Heartbreak Hill. That's as far as he got. Police stopped him and other runners as ambulances raced by. As a pastor and counselor, he's encouraging those who can't see past injustice.
And what I share with people is that's a bad place to remain. Resentment and bitterness becomes a place of comfort. It becomes a place where we like to stay. And like many have said, it becomes our own prison. And we cannot escape, and we cannot get beyond.
America's most beloved ballpark became a sanctuary of support and strength as the Red Sox helped brand the call for Boston to be strong. Jared's last name, the longest in Major League history, provides him with a reminder.
Saltalamacchia, it means to jump over a thicket. It's pretty cool because constantly that's what we're doing, is we're jumping over something. We all come to a gap in the road in our lives that we need to, get over. For me, that's been a big thing where I don't want to cut my Christianity short. I don't want to cut my relationship with God short and cut corners. And I want to just be all in. Just be all in for Him, and then I won't ever have to worry about that gap in the road. I'll always have Him to help me get over it.
And this is where I believe our faith is so essential. If we look at Jesus, there's no one who's been wronged like Him in the same way. And yet, He looks down at those who hurt Him, and He's able to release. He's able to let go. His example helps us and guides us through the minefield of emotions that we go through.
Rob lives in Hopkinton, not far from the marathon starting line. He's a fixture in the community as a runner and pastor. He's helping others process through their grief and anger while testing the mettle of his own faith.
God is telling us we have to forgive. it's really for our benefit. As I was able to say, look, I can forgive this person, there's like a weight comes off my shoulders. There's a sense of freedom that I get. We have access to resurrection power in the midst of our daily events. You need to love your enemy. We have to wrestle with what Christ is telling us He wants us to do. It's not an optional thing. And a challenge to say, can I really walk this out? Can I do what Jesus did? When He's on the cross, He says something which is so bizarre. Father, forgive them. They do not know what they've done.
Has your Christianity been tested?
Without a doubt, 100%. There's so much emotions build up through this whole ordeal. Just think about more than just yourself and stop being selfish for that moment, and you know what it truly means to be a Christian. And you know that's what everybody sees.
When evil comes at us, our response, the power in our lives, comes by being able to repay that evil and really undo that evil with blessing, with courage. And that's where I think we can overcome the fear, and that's where I believe we can overcome bitterness.
How do you process releasing forgiveness?
You know, going to these hospitals, seeing, you know, I talked to a gentleman who was there with his 4-year-old son, and then that's when the second bomb went off, and that's when he realized that, you know, his leg had, you know, been blown off basically. And the first thing he did was grab his son and just protect him. And then he called an officer over and told the officer, just take my son and protect him, keep him safe, you know, put him wherever you gotta put him. And you know what, I look at that and I say, you know, that's what Jesus does to us. You know, He takes us and protects us.
Are we people of faith or not? Is God who God says He is? Will God do what God promises to do? And to say we don't control this universe, we don't control these things, but Jesus does and can. We say it's not our strength, it's God who protects us. If we will allow Him and depend on Him, that's not passive, that's faith.
Forgiveness is so hard, especially in the wake of such evil, but it's so important because it sets you free. And if you're struggling to forgive someone today, our staff is here to help you. They want to help you and pray with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just call the number on your screen. And when you do, you can ask for this book list. It's called Forgiveness, Keys to Powerful Living. We'll send it to you absolutely free. The number again, 1-800-759-0700, or you can log on to cbn.com. What an incredible story, though.
Thank you very much. And I might add, the people of Boston, they said, well, this is Boston. We're not going to let some terrorists keep us from a historic event. We're going to run the marathon, and today's the day they're running again, and they'll probably be the biggest crowd in history up there because those Bostonians are tough people, and they're going to fight back, and they're not going to let a couple of sick-minded terrorists, you know, overcome them. And yes, the sense of forgiveness has got to be there. Well, coming up next, he's got a black belt in karate. He's best known for blockbusters like Braveheart. We've got an interview with writer and producer Randall Wallace. He's directed a new movie called Heaven is for Real.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I have a son who's extremely smart and sensitive. He went to heaven. I came back.
One true story has become a worldwide sensation.
You saw heaven? It's beautiful.
This Wednesday, Heaven is for Real is a profoundly beautiful movie.
They don't believe me, do they?
Some people might be afraid to believe.
That will help many to believe.
Is heaven a hope or as real as the earth and sky?
A perfect family film. Heaven is for Real. Rated PG.
Welcome back to Washington for this CBN News break. The Christian film God's Not Dead is still doing extremely well at the box office. The movie finished in the top 10 again over the weekend, coming in at number 7 with an estimated $5.5 million. So far, the film has made more than $40 million after being in theaters for 4 weeks. CBN's program 180 Degrees has won the Teletriumph Award in television production for the second year in a row. Teletriumph is Ukraine's national award for television and radio broadcasting. The award celebrates significant achievements in the industry, encourages development of TV production, and recognizes high broadcast standards. The 180 Degrees winning episode called Syndrome of Kindness features a positive message about a Ukrainian Dutch family raising a child with Down syndrome. One of the show's producers said, "By producing our programs, we aim to inspire positive changes in people's lives because of God." Well, you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international. Pat and Wendy will be back right after this.
Cell phones are great, but the amount some companies charge is just crazy.
Since Connie and I switched to Consumer Cellular, we both get everything we want, and we're paying about half what we used to.
Do I have to buy the whole basket?
No.
Hey, you old cheapskate. Hey, Jack. Why pay for more than you need, right?
That's why I keep telling you, Consumer Cellular plans start at just $10 a month.
And I'm finally ready. My contract's up.
Oh, here's to the end of contracts.
Yeah.
Well, did you tell him how easy it is to switch?
Well, of course I told him. It's really easy to switch.
Consumer Cellular, simple plans with award-winning service and no contract. Start your 30-day risk-free trial today. Activation is free, a $35 value, and we'll ship it free. Or visit a Sears store today. And Consumer Cellular was selected as the exclusive wireless provider for AARP members. Ask about your special discounts.
Call 1-800-460-7238. Go online to consumercellular.com or visit a Sears store today.
Tomorrow, your son had a near-death experience.
He saw things that I can't really explain.
Before you see the movie,
Mom was in one room, you were in another room yelling at God.
get the real story.
I knew that the first person I saw was Jesus. He was wearing white robes with a purple sash.
Colton Burpo shares what's on the other side.
Heaven is for real, and you're gonna like it.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club. To see this week's top on-demand videos, go to cbn.com.
Welcome back. Well, the movie Heaven is for Real opens in theaters nationwide this Wednesday, April 16th. And last week, in our studios, Pat interviewed the film's director, Randall Wallace. Let's take a look.
Randall Wallace is the award-winning screenwriter of such epic movies as Braveheart, Pearl Harbor, and Secretariat. He's also the screenwriter, director, and producer for the upcoming feature film Heaven is for Real. The movie, based on the best-selling book, is the true story of the near-death experience of 4-year-old Colton Burpo. It opens in theaters April 16th.
Please welcome back to the 700 Club, a great producer. The producer, by the way, of the film that I think is the best I've ever seen, called Braveheart. It was about a guy named Wallace. Is he a relative of yours?
I am absolutely convinced that he is one of my ancestors.
Well, us Scots have to stand together. So.
We do.
But what got you into this thing about this Burpo situation?
Braveheart, I wrote, every man dies, not every man really lives. And that phrase resonated with a lot of people. Heaven is for Real went on to ask the further question, everybody dies, what then?
Yes. That story has captivated people. I mean, my goodness, the book has been a runaway, 10 million copies sold, New York Times bestseller for week after week. What do you think this movie's going to do?
I think people are going to be amazed by the movie. It touches your heart, first of all, and it gives you an experience of heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a boy who can tell you, okay, this is what my experience was. This is what heaven feels like. And that's what we wanted to give the audience, an experience of being in heaven. One of the biggest revelations for me about how to approach this was the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah. Well, he said he ran into a little girl. You had the little girl grown up, but she was just a couple months in his mother's womb. I mean, she was a 2-month-old fetus when she died.
Yes. You know, I was inspired in some part by what C.S. Lewis said, that everyone who goes to heaven will be surprised.
Yeah.
And that in God, there is no time. God is beyond time. So what happens in heaven is in the hands of God, is God's mystery. In fact, it's really interesting. We had a screening of this movie for just some of my friends in Malibu, California. And Mel Gibson came. He's a friend of mine, a guy I love and believe in. And I asked him afterwards what his experience was, and without wanting to share private matters, but he said, well, first of all, you just squeeze some tears out of me. And that was a big thing, to squeeze some tears out of him. But he said, you know, he grew up in the Catholic tradition. I grew up a Baptist. And we all have different understandings about what is necessary to go to heaven. And we were talking about that, the differences. And he said, well, the truth is, God made the rules. God can do anything God wants. And I thought that was a beautiful way to say it.
Well, I tell you, The Braveheart was a fantastic movie, and his Passion, he screened that Passion for us, extraordinarily successful. Mel's gone through a rough patch. Are you going to get him back and redeemed, or whatever you got to do to him? He's sort of been the dark side in Hollywood.
Well, Mel's a genius and a man of tremendous heart, and he's always been there for everyone else who has had any kind of difficulty. He's been the first one to reach out to them and help them without any of that being known or celebrated. I really think we're going to see some great things from him in the future.
Well, I would certainly hope so, because I reached out to him after some of that stuff took place, and I know we were praying for him, and he's just a nice guy, and I don't understand what happened. How do you get along in Hollywood? I mean, there's a rather secular culture out there, and you're raised as a Baptist, writing about heaven. How do you make it in that environment?
Well, I'll tell you what I find, Pat, is that what Jesus said about the two great commandments, love God and love your neighbor,
yes,
is so meaningful to me in everywhere I go, that what people worship tells you everything about the direction of their lives. And I would say that in places like New York, money is God. If you've got money, no matter how you got it, people treat you like you're successful.
That's
in Hollywood, the idolatry is about celebrity. It's about fame. Both those ways are ways to lose your soul.
Well, they certainly are.
God is God, and I try to remember that, and my need to remember that is as great as anyone's is. And I find that the hunger for that truth is there with everybody. When Heaven is for Real came along, I had a chance to do something that I'd never even imagined doing. The book was amazing to me because the Burpos, I know you've met the Burpos, and their story was just so believable because it surprised them. You know, if somebody's making up a story that they're trying to convince somebody else of, they have an agenda. But they had a tale that amazed them. When your 4-year-old starts to tell you what heaven's like and you don't expect that, then that started to be extremely believable to me and gripping.
Well, it was without question, and it's been successful. Well, I commend you on the work you've done, and I pray that the Lord will give you many more times of triumph, and along the way, bring Mel Gibson back into the fold, and I think that'll be something else. God bless you. Thank you for being with me.
Pat. Thank you. Good
Appreciate it.
Brother.
Coming up later, we'll bring it on with your email questions, so don't go away.
I have a son who's extremely smart and sensitive. He went to heaven. I came back.
One true story has become a worldwide sensation.
You saw heaven? It's beautiful.
This Wednesday, Heaven is for Real is a profoundly beautiful movie.
They don't believe me, do they?
Some people might be afraid to believe.
that will help many to believe.
Is heaven a hope or as real as the earth and sky?
A perfect family film. Heaven is for Real. Rated PG.
Visit Vonage.com for home phone service, and you could save 39% versus a traditional home phone plan. With Vonage, you'll get over 25 great features, plus award-winning customer service. Get Vonage today and save with our special intro price.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm so excited about Regent University. Regent's graduating here the 1st of May. It'll be the largest class in its history, over 1,400 graduates and 6,000 students and many, many people online. So if you're looking for a university of high quality where you can finish up your career goals and get a bachelor or master's degree, Regent University. And before we go to the, yes?
Remember, last week I was bragging on my brother who graduated from Regent Law School.
Yeah.
Well, he said he didn't know that because he wasn't watching that day. One of his clients, the mother of one of his clients, called him because she's trying to get her daughter out of jail, and said, "Is your sister on the 700 Club?" Because she was talking about you, and so lo and behold.
Well, I hope he's successful.
He's doing
and by the
great.
way, we've got to clarify something. I asked about the marathon. Today is the anniversary of that tragedy, but they're not running the marathon today. It's a week from today. It's a week
from today.
Week from today. So I had that wrong. So today's the anniversary of that horrible event, but it'll be next Monday.
Next Monday.
Next
Monday. Hopefully they're going to have
I hope we're right
great
on
weather.
that one. Does that everybody agree? All right, it's next Monday. But anyhow, we want to salute all those people. And they've 60 Minutes did a feature on a lady who is maybe the first American to win the marathon.
That'd be nice.
It's good.
Yeah.
I had a guy working for us here as a former Navy SEAL who did a double triathlon. Triathlon is 2 marathons, 52 miles, and then they swim and.
Is that called the Iron Man?
Yeah, the Iron Man. He did a double Iron Man. He was 49 years old, came in 3rd. It was amazing. He was running and working for about 23 hours.
I remember him. He was in magnificent
John
shape.
Lee is a great guy. Okay, let's take some questions.
Okay, great. Paula writes, can you lose your healing?
Oh, without question, you can lose your healing. I mean, if you start questioning what happened, we've had it over and over again. You know, somebody was healed, they began to walk, they took braces off, and they were moving around, and then somebody said, well, you really shouldn't do that without your braces, and they put the braces on, and bang, the paralysis comes right back. So yes, you can lose it. You need to continue to walk in the faith that God gives you. Next question.
Milton writes, my daughter and her husband are at the point of divorce. I've prayed my heart out to God. I even asked him to give me a feeling of peace to show that he heard my plea. Nothing happens. He has shut the door to my prayer. I don't know what else to do.
I'll tell you what you got to do is surrender that child and her husband to the Lord. You can't force somebody. You can't live somebody else's life. You can't live your child's life. I mean, we have to recognize that. They're independent beings, and the fact that she's married, she is now emancipated. She has left her mother's home and is cleaving to her husband. Now they're breaking up. It's a tragedy, but you can pray and ask, but surrender them to the Lord. You're holding on. Let go, and say, God, I'm giving her into your hand, and then let him take it from there. All right.
Yeah, let go and let God. Amazing. All right, Brian writes, my question is on Hebrews 6:4-6. What does it mean if a Christian walks away that he or she can't come back to God? It has been 10 years that I did my thing, and I won't run back to him. So if you can shed some light on this, Hebrews.
All right. Here's what it does. For in the case of those who have once been enlightened and have tasted of the heavenly gift and have been made partakers of the Holy Spirit and have tasted the good work of God and the powers of the age to come and then have fallen away, it is impossible to renew them again to repentance. That has to do with apostasy, of turning away from God completely. It doesn't mean you've gone into sin and you're drinking too much or you're sleeping around. It means that you have literally turned your back on God and you counted the covenant of grace an unholy thing. That's what that says. And so I don't think you've done that. So what else?
Mrs. L writes, I know a member of the Assemblies of God. This person told me that Jewish people do not worship the same God that we do. Is it really the truth?
I don't know where people get this stuff. Of course, the God of Israel is the God of Jesus. Jesus was a Jew. He was a Jew. And most of the early apostles were Jews. It was a Jewish religion. And he was the Messiah of Israel. And of course, the God. Elohim is Jewish God, but the Lord is Yahweh, Jehovah, Yehovah. It's in Hebrew, the God we have of the Christian faith. Jewish. And we are grafted in as Christians. Okay, what else?
All right, Justin writes, I have a family member who says you need to be immersed to be saved. And if I am baptized any other way, I will go to hell along with everyone else who is not immersed. She has even said a family member on her deathbed will go to hell. Is immersion the only way as far as water baptism?
There's some people who are into these fundamentalist cults who just got an awful lot of misinformation. If what she said was true, then Jesus Christ was wrong on the cross. And I don't think the Son of God made a mistake when he told the thief, this day you'll be with me in paradise. That guy said, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And he didn't get baptized in water, and he didn't get immersed. I mean, this is nonsense. Where do you get this stuff? And, you know.
So baptism is our public confession that we are believers.
Well, no, it's more than that. It's, if you read the 6th chapter of Romans, it has to do with it's a symbol of death. You're buried with him in baptism, raised in newness of life. So that is the immersion thing, but nevertheless, it is a public confession, as you say, that we've come to the Lord. You know, Paul said, I want you to know that I haven't baptized, but there were a couple. I now don't remember, I baptized a couple, but I was here to preach the gospel. If baptism was what was going to save you, then Paul would have baptized every single person he led to the Lord. And he personally said, I didn't. I baptized a few, but I was here to preach the gospel. Well, we leave you with today's Power Minute from the book of James, chapter 1. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask God, who gives freely. And, okay, well, tomorrow, sometimes, I can't read
the sometimes toxic mix of millennials.
What is that?
it's a
How do I know? They've got me a graph. I don't even know what they're talking about. A toxic mix of millennials?
Social media and the workplace.
Oh, please. Well, whatever it is, it's confusing. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Don't miss it tomorrow on the 700 Club. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow,
your son had a near-death experience.
He saw things that I can't really explain.
Before you see the movie,
Mom was in one room, you were in another room yelling at God.
Get the real story.
I knew that the first person I saw was Jesus. He was wearing white robes with a purple sash.
Colton Burpo shares what's on the other side.
Heaven is for real, and you're gonna like it.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?